KC Concepcion was one of the most electrifying players last year as just a freshman. What should we expect from him as a sophomore?
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Happy Wednesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, today we're talking KC Concepcion. He was one of the most exciting players that we have returning to this football squad in 2024. We all know the season that he put on for us in 2023. He had over 70 receptions. He had 10 touchdowns. Basically, your do-it-all utility knife for this NC State offense last year. Throughout the offseason, we made it a very clear emphasis to add other really important skill players around him. We picked up a Noah Rogers, Wesley Grimes, Justin Jolie, the running backs, and the list goes on. So the conversation that we're going to try and have here today is, what are the expectations for KC coming into next year? Because I kind of have the stance. His numbers were so gaudy because we essentially had to force feed him. He was the only seemingly reliable skill player that could step up for us week in and week out. And that wasn't always just as a receiver. Quite a few rushes as well. I think he had like over 40 rushes, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, literally had to do everything for us. But now, being that we have so many other pieces to this offense, do you think that he'll see an increased role and his numbers will continue to skyrocket? Or do you think perhaps he'll see a little bit of decrease in productivity, not for any bad reason, it's just because we have more around him?
I think they hold steady. I'm not sure that I see a significant increase, but what people are forgetting when we talk about the supporting cast around KC being so much better, KC will be better. He's getting faster, bigger, stronger, quicker, smarter. He's seeing more coverages. He's understanding coverages more. And also the opponents. I mean, the old guys from last year are gone. Like, there will be no Nate Wiggins for him to face this year. There will be, that just is not the case. And so I honestly and truly believe that his stats will hold the same, because there are more weapons. And obviously Anai will try to get the ball to those exponentially more weapons than we had last year. Right. But the deal works out in a very simple way, right? Let's just say that all of the other weapons are as good as advertised, if not better. You're putting Grayson McCall in the ultimate situation to succeed.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, buddy, we don't need you to be great. Just throw the ball to the open guy, and guess what? You have receivers so talented, there will always be an open guy. I expect KC's numbers to hold, because I think that what he did last year was good. I think there's another level. I think there's truly another level. I talked about last year that he looked more short area quick than fast. What if he develops that long speed a little bit more? And I know that long speed is one of the toughest things, because that's a lot of people see it as a genetic thing. But there are also multiple factors that go into long speed throughout a game and throughout a season, right? So your durability is a big part of that. Your stamina, your conditioning. If you are conditioned to take the pounding of a full game and maintain the speed at which you run for longer, it looks like you're getting faster, when in reality, your speed is just decreasing less than everybody else's as the game goes on. I'd love to see him finish some of those longer runs and receptions as touchdowns. I remember the play against Wake Forest being one in particular where I was like, and I feel like I'm being a little nitpicky here, but I think that there's so much room for him to hold where he was last year, which, again, there are more weapons, absolutely. But I think he has a better passer than either one of the guys last year were, with all due respect to Brennan Armstrong and MJ Morris. I think he has more weapons around him, which takes off some of that heat. and it creates a better situation for him to get favorable mismatches against safeties and linebackers. I'm just saying, I predict that his stats will hold somewhere near what he did last year.
Yeah, I just think it's a little hard for me to see him maintaining the same stat line because I just think you have so many other mouths to feed. And that, again, that's a really good problem to have because last year we struggled so much in trying to get anyone other than Casey to step up and be a consistent force on this offense. And then as we all saw, it just never really happened. But looking at the stats from last year, you look at Casey in particular, he had 71 perceptions. No one else on the team had more than 30. He had 839 reception yards. No one else had more than 300. He had 10 receiving touchdowns. No one else had more than 3. In fact, Trent Penix had 3. That was the second highest of anyone else on the team.
I'm sorry. After hearing those stats out loud, his stats are going to get better this year.
Oh, you double it down.
His stats are going to get better this year. Book
Okay.
it. Yeah, book it. And I hate to cut you off here. 700 yards is a good amount. He'll do better this year. He'll be a 1,000-yard guy this year.
Doubling down. I love it.
Yeah. And I thought that he was close to a 1,000-yard guy last year. I'm not sure how much the touchdowns increase. I'm telling you right now, KC is going to put up better numbers next year in terms of receiving yards. Maybe not receptions. Receiving yards, he's going to have a better year.
I mentioned his rush yards. He did have 41 carries for 320 yards. I do think that'll go down because now you have Jordan Waters, Hollywood Smothers, and year 2 of Kendrick Raphael. So if Casey still has 41 carries, I think that is probably because something went terribly wrong. I think if Casey has 70-plus receptions, that would also be weirdly concerning. Not I guess weirdly, not concerning in a bad way, but it's like with everyone else on this team now, how did he still get 70-plus receptions? But I think that his yak will go up. I think he'll be even more of an explosive player than he was last year. He will be bigger. He will be stronger. He will be faster. He was already one of the best route runners in the country. Then you add more physical attributes to him. I still think the wealth will be distributed so much to everyone else because, I mean, I'm looking at Justin Jolie, and I talk about him a lot. I think he's going to receive a lot of receptions this year. Noah Rogers, another guy, he's going to have a ton of targets and a ton of receptions this year. If Casey is maintaining this same stat line, I think it would be because we're hanging like 50-plus points on teams. We're going for style points, effectively running up the score on folks, which is not exactly in the style of Dave Dorn. But any potential drop-off in statistics for KC, it's certainly not for lack of talent. It's certainly not for lack of ability in getting open and this, that, and the other. I just think that the variety of other skill players now at our disposal, there will be a distribution of wealth. But I also see where that would make KC even better. We've talked a lot about being completely unsure in how in the world a defense is going to game plan for us because we have so many other athletes and you have KC. If you hone in on KC, Justin Jolie's wide open. If you look at Noah Rogers, Wesley Grimes, Dakari Collins, whoever else, you have KC running down the seam and you know McCall's going to find him. So it's definitely a nightmare for other teams to deal with. KC is going to be a nightmare again this year. I would expect maybe a little bit of a drop-off, but again, not because of ability, just because of everyone else getting involved as well.
The only way I could see a drop-off happening for him is if everybody eats to a level that's absolutely insane. And by everybody, I mean everybody. I mean Jonathan Paylor's getting in on the act. I mean, you're seeing everybody that you've already mentioned get in on the act. Juice Arenas on, because the way that I see it, he's a superstar that's getting a year older. He's a superstar that's getting a year older. And here's the thing. I thought that his numbers last year, and I haven't looked at his stats in quite some time. I thought that his numbers were at the level where if they got any better, he was a shoo-in for the Biletnikoff. There's a good gap between where he was last year and Biletnikoff level. He'll be just fine. I think his numbers are going to see an increase. And don't get me wrong, I do think that a lot of these guys are going to produce next year. I do think a lot of these guys are going to be phenomenal next year. I wouldn't be surprised if Paylor was a freshman All-American next year. The reality is I definitely see a world where he ends up being a 1,000-yard receiver, and this team is still perfectly fine. There's still a good distribution There's still the worry of Noah Rogers. There's still the worry of Wesley Grimes. There's still the worry of Dakari Collins. There's still the worry of Jackson. There's still the worry of all these other guys. I believe Terrell Anderson was the highest rated of the pure receivers of the group, because we know Paylor was a little bit of a quote-unquote athlete with all the different things that he did as opposed to Anderson. And y'all know how high I am on a young man out of Weddington that I feel like is one of the more polished, pure receivers that I've seen in quite some time come out. And so this team really does have weapons galore. But even with those weapons galore, it's like if you're a first-person shooter player, you know, and you've developed out all these weapons, you've played a ton on Call of Duty or Fortnite or whatever the case may be, you still got your favorite loadout. You've still got that one that you're like, these guys were talking a little too greasy in the lobby. Let me go get Big Bertha. Let me go get the loadout that everybody knows is my favorite. And I think that's who KC will be for Grayson McCall next year.
Coming up next, we're getting into a whole lot of nothing or a whole lot of something after a quick word from our sponsors. Today's sponsor is Gametime. Gametime makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Or maybe you're looking for super regional tickets down in Athens this weekend. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off or first pitch. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, you name it, they got it, all on Gametime. You can toggle their all-in pricing feature, which shows your total up front, so you receive zero surprises at checkout. And of course, your panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect upon arrival. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, create an account and use redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Middle portion of our Wednesday show. Now time for a whole lot of nothing or a whole lot of something. 3 topics. We'll tell you exactly where we stand on them. First one here. In a tweet released on Tuesday, NCAA Football Nation on Twitter released their top 48 quarterbacks entering the 2024 season. They had Grayson McCall listed at number 15 in the country. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
I'm going to say a whole lot of something because there are approximately there are 134 FBS teams. Now, for those of you who are not good at math, don't worry. I'll help you out. 15 out of 134 puts you in the top 11%. Folks, I think that's pretty good. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, that in essence is saying that 89% of teams would be better off if they had you at quarterback than not. If Grayson McCall can live up to that billing, I'm not saying that many people in Raleigh would have Grayson McCall tattoos, but I would just know. What I know for a fact is Grayson Boone would slide down the list of important Graysons in the city of Raleigh immediately. The Grayson Power Rankings would immediately see a shakeup. I think that's a whole lot of something, but he still has to go out there and prove it. You know, we say it all the time. At the end of the day, what these players do when we put the ball down matters more than every preseason ranking ever will.
It's a little bit of both for me. I think it's a whole lot of something because it's nice to get this preseason recognition. And to be honest, to see him at 15, it's a little bit higher than I would have guessed coming into this list blind. I probably would have had him somewhere in the top 25, but 15 is a nice spot. And I do think it reflects how good of a quarterback he really is. Again, this is a 3-time Sun Belt Player of the Year quarterback. This is a quarterback who has accounted for over 100 touchdowns, over 10,000 passing yards. It's not for nothing. He's bringing a whole lot of talent with him to Raleigh. But the other part of this is the slight bit of a whole lot of nothing. He's got to prove it. He's moving up from the Sun Belt to the ACC. Whether or not you think it is a big deal, there is some level of truth that it is a different ball game going from a G5 to a P4. So he's got to prove it. Being a top 15 quarterback in the country, if he stays around that level or increases his stock, like many of us think that he will, that will bode extremely, extremely well for NC State. If he sneaks up into like the top 10 quarterback play for 2024, that means NC State is probably going to be in the CFP. That means he's playing so well that more than likely we're going to win 10 plus games. So for him to be starting at 15, he's going to have 2 early opportunities in Tennessee and Clemson to prove himself right off the bat in the month of September. So it's a little bit of both. I think it's nice for the recognition, but he's still got to be able to prove it once we put the ball down. Number 2, former NC State linebacker LeVar Fisher is up for the 2025 College Football Hall of Fame nominations. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. This is NC State getting its recognition for our legends and what they've done for the game. And I absolutely want to see LeVar Fisher get in, but I also want to see his old partner in crime, Thunder, get in as well. I mean, those two have meant a tremendous amount to this university. LeVar Fisher was obviously an absolute menace during his time. And you know, you think about the 10-win season with Phillip Rivers and that crew, that defense was a large part of that. Obviously, back then, you were not getting by with just offense. And so, you know, LeVar Fisher was an amazing linebacker. He was great going downhill and backpedaling as well. He could do it all from his linebacker spot. And so to see that he is being considered for this type of accolade and recognition, it means a lot because it means NC State is getting recognition. So I hope he gets in. We'll see how it works out.
NC State already has 7 inductees in the College Football Hall of Fame. LeVar Fisher would be an excellent 8th addition. We're talking about a 2-time first-team All-American linebacker. He was a finalist for the Nagurski Trophy, 2001 ACC Defensive Player of the Year, and he's NC State's all-time leading tackler. No, it's not Peyton Wilson. It's LeVar Fisher, and he has 492 tackles over the course of his career in Raleigh. If that doesn't say College Football Hall of Fame, I'm not sure what else would. This is a guy that laid it all on the line for the Wolfpack throughout the course of his career. You did not want to get met in the hole by LeVar Fisher and or D'Antonio Burnett way back in the early 2000s. Kenton, you hit the nail on the head here. It's excellent recognition for NC State and their legends. And it's both past due that we get recognition and overdue that NC State gets more recognition coming down the pikeway. And NC State only having 7, we got to up these numbers, man. We have to be producing more storied careers that can be considered for the College Football Hall of Fame. And so LeVar Fisher, if he does get in, and there is a very extensive list of guys that he would be competing against, it would be such an unbelievable win for the NC State football program. He's very deserving. It's just a matter of whether or not he will or will not make it in.
Matthew McConaughey said in Wolf of Wall Street, you got to pump those rookie numbers up. We got to pump them up, baby.
Last one here is college baseball related. Super Regionals of this weekend down in Athens. Georgia's offense has swatted 56 more home runs than NC State's this year. Do we think Georgia's offense is a little too hot to be cooled off? Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
This is tough because I want to say whole lot of nothing and walk in with that bravado and that confidence of we can do this. But it also feels like a whole lot of something because, I mean, chicks dig the long ball, as they say. But in all seriousness, I'm obviously going to go with a whole lot of nothing. This pitching staff, listen, it doesn't matter how well they're hitting them out the yard if we're giving them stuff that they can't hit. With that in mind, I honestly and truly believe, hey, the Bulldogs are a very quality offense. You and I have both talked about how, I mean, they can drive in some runs in no time. They can turn a game on its head and turn it into a blowout in absolutely no time. But again, I really and truly believe in these last month and a half or so of baseball for NC State, I don't know what has come into our bullpen. I don't know what has come into our pitching staff. But all of a sudden, it's like they've stolen a bunch of MLB guys' talent, like in Space Jam or something like that, because these guys are dealing. They are absolutely, the starters are doing what needs to be done to build leads, and the bullpen is coming in and slamming the door shut. So while it is, I mean, hey, good for y'all for being good throughout the year offensively, I'm going to say a whole lot of nothing because our pitchers, I believe that they're going to be absolute nails throughout this super regional.
Yeah, I'm going to lean into it. I'm going to go with a whole lot of nothing. But I will say this. I put a lot more weight this weekend on our starting pitching than I do on our bullpen. I am supremely confident in our bullpen. If it comes down to them, they will answer the bell and get the job done. Georgia's offense, it is very explosive. They do hit a lot of home runs. They do have, honestly, the best hitter in college baseball in Charlie Condon. He has ridiculous numbers if you care to look those up. But NC State's bullpen, I truly think they can handle anything Georgia throws at them. So in my mind, these games will be won or lost in probably like the first 5 innings. If our starting pitchers can keep them in the ballpark enough that our offense is able to compensate, I like our chances down in Athens. Even though it'll be a relatively tough environment, Georgia's a really good team. Doesn't matter. We have what it takes to go on the road and get 2 more wins so we can make it out to Omaha. But again, it's going to come down to starting pitching for NC State. So I'm going to go with a whole lot of nothing. I have full confidence in our bullpen. I'm not afraid of this Georgia offense. I do think that we can get it done.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what's a dog to a wolf?
Food. Coming up next, we're going to round out our Wednesday show with a little bit of an update for this in-state potential bill being passed for ECU, App State, and Charlotte with NC State and UNC. After a quick word from our sponsors. Last couple of minutes of our Wednesday show, providing a little bit of an update from something we talked about a couple weeks ago. The government in the state of North Carolina is trying to implement a bill that would require NC State and UNC to not only play each other every year, but also one of App State, ECU, or Charlotte, I believe in both football and basketball. So since we discussed that, NC State and App State did have a home-and-home schedule to begin in 2025. NC State backed out of that and scheduled Virginia instead. I believe App State has also rescheduled that on their end. They picked Boise State, if I'm not mistaken. However, I've also heard that NC State and App State are still in constant communication, and they're going to try and just move this home-and-home to a later date. But that's where this comes back in, because I do believe that NC State and App State canceling that home-and-home has kind of upped the ante for the government in getting this bill passed. So it's sounding like, or at least I believe it was posted on Tuesday, the initial pass through the House committee, not been voted on yet, but the initial pass through the House committee was passed in about 30 seconds. So in my mind, that means it's coming down the pike. It seems like this is going to be enforced. And I believe the original article said it would come into effect on July 1st if it does come to that. So after this month passes, you may see this come into effect. Kenton, has your mind changed at all since the last time we talked about this?
Yes, my mind has changed. It's an even worse decision than I originally thought. Boo, I hate this. I hate this. I'm booing you. I'm throwing tomatoes at you. North Carolina legislature, I'm throwing tomatoes at you. I hope you all do not duck. These are soggy, expired tomatoes. I hope that you get hit by all of them. Again, this bill is kind of lame. I would hope that both sides, in terms of the Dirty Foot Club and us, still hate each other enough to, regardless of what conference we're in, you got to see about me, and I got to see about you. We got a date. Every year around Thanksgiving, one of us has got to take care of the other. I would hope that we hate each other enough to make that a permanent thing. Now, granted, back when I played, you did not always play your rival at the end of the year. In fact, that was very rare. More often than not, we would play them in the middle of the year and had a bunch of games afterwards. Yep. But since that's the new way of the world and rivalry week is the last week of the season, we got a date. After we finish packing away the Thanksgiving ham, we got to pack up some Thanksgiving ram. That's what it's been for years now, and that's what it should remain. Okay? Now, as far as UNC Charlotte, App State, ECU, you know, like it's one of those things where it's just like, this is very meh. Again, what do the in-state schools that are in the ACC or bigger conference gain by playing these teams? What do you gain? You know, like, I don't like it. I don't care for it. And I really, again, I'm one of those people, Grayson. I'm one of those people. Stick to sports. Let's stick this thing to sports. What are we doing with politicians getting into sports? Get out of here. You've got a ton of other problems to deal with as a state. I promise you. There are tons of other things to fix. Get out of here. Stop forcing people to play App State. If you have to force two teams to get together, you probably shouldn't be doing it. You probably shouldn't make it happen. So that's just my opinion there.
Yeah, my thing is we already had series scheduled out with each of these three schools before this entire conversation ever came into effect. Don't force us into doing it. Let us do this naturally because it looked like we're going to be doing it anyway. And I will say this again because I've said it on here before. I do want to play App State, but only because I want to go up the mountain and I want to shut them up. I'm tired of them telling us that NC State's afraid of us. Afraid of what? Afraid of what? You don't run this state. You're not the best program in the state of North Carolina. You have nothing that would prove that you are. I would love to just go up there and shut them up one time. It's eventually going to happen probably in the next 2 or 3 years or so. Certainly not afraid of ECU. And Charlotte, respectfully, doesn't move the needle for me.
Who?
Yeah.
Who?
Don't be forcing us to do this. We'll see them when we see them. But don't make us rearrange all of this scheduling just so we have to play ECU, once every 3 years? No thanks, man. I'm good on that.
But Grayson, Monty Edwards did a thing in Ann Arbor. They're the best team in the state because of that, right? The kick is blocked. They're the best team in the.
We'll see about it.
Stop it. Get some help. Listen, I'm fine with not seeing about it, honestly. I'm really okay with not seeing about it. I'm really okay. Sometimes I hate to do this, but I'm gonna do it. When I was at Cass Tech, everybody wanted a piece of us. Every school said, "Oh yeah, if we played you, we're gonna destroy you. Oh yeah, we're gonna rip a mud hole in you." And you know what we would say to them all the time? Pay us. If you pay us enough money, we'll come beat you. We'll beat the brakes off you, and we'll go on about our way.
Tell them to bring me my money.
Let me tell you something. Money talks and everything else walks. And if you don't got the back ends to make it make sense I'm sorry. NC State, I know that a lot of people like to categorize us as little brother and like to say, oh, we got this chip on our shoulder from, the little brother. I'm sorry. I'm just being very honest when I say this. We have to embrace at some point in time. There are certain things that are objectively beneath us. And by beneath us, I don't mean these teams could never beat us in the month of Sundays, because we've seen it. I was a part of a team that got beat by ECU years ago. What I mean is, if these teams are not bringing the Munyon, the greenbacks, the paper, the Skrilla, the cheese, the cheddar, whatever you want to call it, if they're not bringing that, I really don't care about bragging rights. This is college. I'm not putting on a state championship ring. Only William would do something so lame.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, I really don't care.
Nothing to gain, everything to lose, and does not make any sense monetarily. And that is that on that. That will do it for us here on Wednesday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments down in the comment box. Tell us what your expectations for KC Concepcion will be in 2024, his sophomore season. Whether you think he'll maintain the same stat line or go and rise above what he put up last year in 2023. Tell us what you think about Grayson McCall being listed number 15 in that top 48 quarterback list that we're referring to. Tell us what you think about LeVar Fisher being up for the 2025 College Football Hall of Fame nominations. And lastly, tell us what you think about the state of North Carolina trying to enforce that we play App State, ECU, and Charlotte somewhat regularly. We say boo. Maybe you say yay. Hope you don't. But if you do, that's on you. Hit that subscribe button if you have not already, and we will see you all on Friday, not on Thursday, but on Friday. We'll have Fan Friday for you on Friday. That's a lot of Fs. We will see you then, and until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.